So we're going to start. So good evening, everyone. I'm Jeanette Alomia, District Director of Guidance for the Huntington Schools. Welcome. This will be a very informative and pretty important event, as you will be learning about the new up-and-coming digital SAT exam. And our presenter from the Princeton Review will be covering details about that exam, but also touching upon the PSAT, which our grade 11 students will take next Thursday, October 12th. So just the objective of this event is to demystify and just provide you answers with regards to this new exam, which is going to look pretty differently, than the paper and pencil or paper and pen version of it. And what I'm doing is we're having this event recorded, and it will be posted. The PowerPoint presentation along with the recording will be posted on the website, so you can view it further, in the future. To if you have any questions, you can always refer back to the PowerPoint presentation and the recording. And also, if you can spread the word and share that this presentation will be posted sometime within the next day or so on the district's YouTube channel as well as the district's website. So without further ado, I'm here to present to you Alyssa Cook, who is our regional the Princeton Review representative, and here she is to give you some wonderful information about the digital SAT.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I want to start out the presentation by thanking everyone for being here this evening, because I know it's the craziest time of year and everyone has a lot going on, and the fact that you took this evening to come here and learn about this is amazing. So give yourself a pat on the back, because I know it's a crazy time. But we did want to do this specifically before the PSAT, because the PSAT is going to be digital. So we wanted to give an opportunity to students and families to really get an inside look on this digital test, so that you're going into the PSAT prepared and you know what to expect on the exam, okay? And then all SATs moving forward, starting in March, will be this digital format. I'll go into that in the presentation, but I wanted to just give you a heads up. Also, I'm sorry. I was just about to tell you guys something. Ask me questions throughout. We'll also have a Q&A at the end. So anything, that comes up, feel free to raise your hand. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is, I'm not the College Board. I like to preface all of my presentations by letting you know we're the Princeton Review, not the College Board. Sometimes when I'm presenting this information, parents start asking questions in regard to the College Board, but we're just kind of the middleman. And our goal at the Princeton Review is we teach students how to crack those tests, right? So we're here to beat those standardized tests. We don't work with them. So I just like to start the presentation by letting you know that these changes did not come from me. So let's get into it. So we know change is coming, and change can be scary sometimes, but it's also part of life and how things go. And we're going to get into the structure of the digital SAT, the content of the digital SAT, and strategies that you're going to use for this exam. Let's just preface by discussing the previous changes of this SAT, because we know in the past that the College Board loves to throw curveballs at us, right? They changed in 2005, the scoring went from 1,600 to 2,400, and then they flipped it back, right? They added an essay, and then they took the essay away. They do all these little things that they're always trying to throw to kind of change the test, freshen it up, shake it up a bit. But just so you guys know, the goal of the test is always to try and get one over on you with these questions, and that's why standardized tests are designed that way. And what we're doing is it's grading you on how you take the test, not on your knowledge, okay? That's something that I always like to put out there as well, because a lot of students, get confused at these types of tests. But they've been trying to, stump us for years. This is just another thing that they're doing to make a change and drive all of us nuts, right? So They're going digital. They're trying to keep up with, the times, adapt technology. A lot of exams now are digital. So let's talk about the structure. So it's going digital, but not online. This is something that it's all the buzzwords. What does this mean? Are we going to be at home? Are we at a testing center? How is it going to work? So yes, the whole point was to make that digital aspect, but not online. And what that means is that they made a custom digital built-in application. It's an app. That's a long way of saying an app, right? Like on your phone, you have an app. So they wanted to do this digital exam application. In 2020, they released AP exams in this format, and it didn't really go over too well. So what they did was they collected the feedback from that and said, okay, if we're going to make the SAT digital, we're going to take all this feedback from those unsuccessful APs, and we're going to do it the right way. So now 2 years later, post-COVID, they're rolling out this exam, and they're super confident about it. So the SAT is going to still be taken at a testing site. It's going to be still offered during school days, and it's proctored live. So you go in, registered the same exact way that you would take the paper and pencil test. It's all going to be proctored in person. But what's great is that there will be someone there to help the students. So if anything happens, there'll be a proctor there that could always contact the college board and work through anything that comes up. SAT school days have a chance to expand because they say the college board says that the administrative tasks of the exam will be easier and done ahead of time. So this can help make it during the school day and less on weekends. That's going to be up to high schools, but that's another, benefit that they were saying of the exam. So the SAT will still be using that same 400 to 1600 scale. A lot of people keep asking, what's happening with the scoring? Is it the same as, if you take the paper and pencil, is the college going to view it the same way? And yes, the 1600 scale is exactly the same. If someone applies to a school with the paper and pencil versus the digital, it means the exact same thing. The scoring is not changing, okay? Super scoring has been a really popular question about colleges accepting super scores. And to just tell you, the same thing will apply as when it was paper and pencil. It's up to the college. So everyone thinks that it's like the college board will say, yes, we can super score. Every individual school has always made that decision, and moving forward, they will make that decision. And a lot of this comes down to just communicating with the schools that you're applying to and knowing what they're looking for. A lot of those test optional schools and ask questions. I tell this to everybody. Make sure you get your information and know what they're looking for and if they'll super score and let you, because then you can take maybe your reading and writing that you did amazing on a paper and pencil version and then submit your scores on the digital math, and you could super score it together. But once again, that would be up to the college. So the SAT is going to be streamlined. It's going to be a 2-hour test instead of a 3-hour test. So I do a lot of college fairs, and I'm always asking questions to the students, and I'm like, how do you feel? What do you think going into this digital test? And I'm surprised that so much feedback is oh no, I like paper and pencil. But then I'm like, but it's 2 hours instead of 3. And then their eyes light up. And I say there's shorter sections and there's less questions and you could use your calculator the whole time, right? So there's going to be a lot of benefits to this exam. It's this streamlined 2-hour is supposed to help with reduced fatigue as well. You don't have to now sit for 3 hours, and by that 3rd hour, you're exhausted and you can't think straight. You'll be able to save yourself some energy there. So let's get into this. So the reading passages. So on the paper and pencil SAT, you would get paragraphs and paragraphs, and you'd have to go in and then answer 10 questions on that passage. And it was this long passage. What they're doing now is making it little excerpts of 1 or 2 sentences and then a question. Excerpt, question. excerpt question. It's not these like long passages, which I think will be more fast-paced and easier for students to get through those questions because they could focus on one at a time rather than like going back and reading. There's going to be fewer word problems, and you're going to have that built-in calculator that I was just talking about, and students will be able to use their calculator on the entire math section, not just on half. There'll be the built-in Desmos calculator, and then they could also bring their own calculator, and they could use either one. Yes. So the paper and pencil version lets you use your calculator on one section of the math. No. So paper and pencil version is one thing. This is when we go digital. So pretty much this is like when the test goes digital in March of 2024, those students will have access to all these things. If you're still signed up to take a paper and pencil, it's still 3 hours. You get half, well, it's the SAT, but the SAT format is switching to a digital format, as of March, but juniors this year have a specific situation. They have a unique situation. So juniors can take the paper and pencil test in October and December. And if they want to try the digital test, they could take it in March and June and August. So it's switching. But what they're doing is they're rolling out the digital PSAT first so that everyone takes it in the digital format. But it's just that's the month that they decided to do the switch was in March. And back to what I was saying about the colleges, if you take a paper and pencil or a digital, it's being graded and viewed the exact same way for college admissions. So it doesn't matter on the test. And all the questions are exactly the same. It's just the format, the way the test is presented is different. Does that make sense? It still means the same thing for colleges. Yeah, after March 2024, after this, we are digital forever. So that's why 10th graders, you don't really need to worry about the change. This is only juniors that have the opportunity to take one or the other or both. Okay, I clarify this deeper into the presentation. This presentation is just on the digital test. This is to give you guys information on when we go digital. This is what you have access to. Paper and pencil, I just brought that up because I'm comparing the two so you know this is what it's going to be like when we go digital, right? Did you have a question? The PSAT, all of this applies to the PSAT. This is what the PSAT is going to look like this year in October. No. Sophomores next year when they're juniors, it's all digital. We just don't suggest taking the test until you're a junior because of the content and the course material. We want you to finish 10th grade before you go into a real SAT. Yeah, they can sign up. Exactly. Yeah. It's being offered to everyone up until March. So you could take it if you'd like. Yes. Yes. I'm sorry. I got this October's PSAT mixed. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry for the confusion. No, it's fine. That's what we're here for. Yes. Yes. And some students are telling me, I'm taking the digital PSAT. I'm going to see and be exposed to that format. I'm going to stay on that path. So then I'm going to prep for March and for the summer. Because that's why would I mix myself up? But there might be some students that just prefer that paper and pencil and they want to take a shot or they want to take it multiple times and see if they could super score or which one they like better. Yes. If they're going to wait, then no. So my whole thing is the way I like to just explain like the prep for these exams too is it's like It's more beneficial for you to have to decide which one you're going to register for and then put all your energy into prepping for that one instead of just taking them over and over and registering for a bunch of different ones, because it's you move the needle further when you take one or two and then you really prep for it. I hear students all the time at college fairs be like, I'm signing up for this one and then I'm signing up for that one and then I'm taking the ACT. And I'm like, but the whole point is to really see that needle move on your score. And that's where the prep comes in. It's not just like over and over, you're just going to improve by just taking them. You know what I mean? Like the prep goes in. So exactly, if you set up a timeline for yourself of, listen, my goal is to just do that March test, you could prep up until then. No, I'm glad you guys have questions. This is what I'm here for. What was that? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What's your question? I'm sorry. And we have plenty of great resources that I'm going to get into. So let me get through the presentation and then we could touch base on other things at the end, because there's going to be other resources available to help you guys get prepared. So here's just the look at what the redesigned SAT is going to look like. There's going to be these modules, right? There's 2 modules, and then they're broken up into sections. This is where they get those 2 hours from. You're going to have a half hour for each of those sections. So you can see we have and it's the same as the paper and pencil, same types of questions. You have reading and writing, you have math questions. So that's the way it's going to be broken down into around 35-minute sections. And there's modules. And you might be thinking to yourself, what do these modules mean? What does that mean? So let's get into it. But before we move forward, I did want to add some other great features that are going to be on the test, since we were talking about the calculator. So there's going to be great annotating tools for students. So there'll be a highlighter that's built in that you can go in and highlight things in passages. There'll be a way to flag questions, so that one is tricky and you flag it and say, okay, I'll go back to it. There's going to be a clock at the top of the screen that you can hide or see, so you know how much time you have left and you could check in on yourself. There's going to be the built-in graphing calculator, which is the Desmos. We'll talk a little bit more of that. And there's also going to be a reference sheet with math formulas that you can reference. And for all the people that love their scrap paper, you can still use pencil and paper for scrap paper. So no one's telling you, this is digital, you can't write your thoughts down. You can still work through the test on scrap paper. Okay, are we good? Okay. So now let's get into the modules. Why are there 2 modules? The test is going computer adaptive. So the first module is going to be the same difficulty level for everybody, and then you're going to get sorted mid-test for the second module. You are going to be given questions based on how you answered questions. That's computer adaptive. And pretty much this is what they do for GRE exams, and a lot of exams have been computer adaptive. I understand. I'm not the college board. I didn't decide this. I'm the middleman. Don't shoot the messenger, okay? But we're here to help students, and I'm gonna tell you, we get this information from the college board, and then we navigate it, and we're here to help. We're here to help students with these changes and support them so that you still can beat these tests and do well and get into the dream schools, okay? That's why I'm here. So hear me out. So there's going to be the first module is the same difficulty for all. When you see these words, once again, I think they're terrible choice of words when they say more difficult or less difficult. When you see that, I want you to think in your head more higher weighted questions versus less weighted questions, right? It doesn't mean that it's all subjective. When they say hard or difficult, that's subjective to the student, right? But I'm going to tell you, just to take the heat off right now, what that means is it's not knowledge-based. It's the ones that they're going to consider more difficult are the ones that people always miss. And it could be extremely easy, like X plus 7 equals, it's a trick question, right? So it's like, and then people solve for X, right? Like it's like questions that are easy, but it's a trick. And those are the ones that they're going to make have the higher point value. And that's what they're considering difficult. So it seems that's the way you need to think about it, because it's like when I see this, I'm like, what do you mean less difficult, more difficult? It's the points, it's the questions they're giving higher weighted points to. Now I'm going to use an elevator example to explain this to you, because I think this is the best way to understand the way the modules work. When we first rolled this out, we kept getting feedback of like, well, then why won't we just take our time in module 1 so that we get the less difficult module 2? You don't want to do that, because then your score is capped by the time you get to 2. So this is the way the modules work. There's 1,600 points on the SAT. When you're in module 1, you're going to end up, there's 16 floors. You're in an elevator, right? You're going to end up after that second module either closer to the 16th floor or away from the 16th floor. When you enter that less difficult module, you are capped and you can't reach the 16th floor anymore. So you're further away. Does that make sense? What? In which way? I'm just explaining the way it's going to work. Yeah. Thank you. This is the way it's going to work. This is the way they decided to do it. There's no way to know which module you got into. Just know that the whole point of this is to do the best you can on every section, on every question, the same way it would be paper and pencil. If you took this same test paper and pencil, I guarantee you'd get the same score that you would if you did it digitally, because it's still allowing you that opportunity, but it's like you're going to answer those questions either way in part 1 if it was paper or pencil or digital. Just because it's paper and pencil doesn't mean you're going to get them right. So that's what I'm saying. It's going to help, it's going to sort you. That's the one part that is confusing to everyone. But the reason I explain this is so you know to focus on in that first module and do the best you can. Because a lot of students, the first reaction was, oh, well, I'm just going to try and get that less difficult module. Well, you don't want to do that, because then your score is capped, right? But now let me flip it a little bit. The person that gets the second module can still score higher than the person who got the more difficult module. Because if that person does poorly when they get to the second part and you do amazing, you could still end up with a higher score than that person. Okay? So the key here, though, is don't get in your head about the modules. You just go in, and the prep for this exam is exactly the same as the paper and pencil. You're getting the same types of questions. The whole point is to maximize the amount of points you can collect from the exam, and that's it. It's pretty much the same either way. It's just they're adding in this computer adaptive aspect. So you can't test the difficulty of your second module. You can only focus on the questions that you're given. My boss, she took this test, and she was in her own head, and she's taken this test a million times. And she was like, she's like, I can see how students will naturally just start to think about the modules. And she was like, is this a harder question? Is this an easier question? But then she got to the end of the test, and she was like, I did fine. I still did fine. And you never know, because like I said earlier, the difficulty levels are all going to be subjective to the person. So it's not, some people are fabulous in math and some people are better in reading and writing. It's all going to be subjective to the person. These computer adaptive tests are also more secure, and they provide a unique exam for each student. In the past, the SATs have gotten released on the internet. Students are looking on Reddit, and they're getting the answer keys, and they're getting leaked. So this is another way for them to keep it more secure. So let's talk about the content. Standardized tests are completely different from your high school tests. This just breaks it down a little bit and something to remember. Also, I'm going to send the PDF to this entire presentation to you, so you guys will receive all this information. High school tests, we have limited subject matter, content knowledge, plenty of time. You can get partial credit. With these standardized tests, it's on years of material. It's all about strategy. It's right or wrong, and it's machine graded. So, that's why it's totally different, and that prep is important for those standardized tests, because it's a completely different test. Remember, the College Boards determine which questions are easy, medium, and difficult. That doesn't mean that those are for you, okay? And like I said, what they did was they took questions from the past 40 years, and all the questions that people always miss, no matter when or how the format of the test, those are the ones that they give the higher points to. And it's always been like that. It doesn't matter that it's digital. But I want you guys to understand that that's where they get this hard, easy from. It's which ones will trick you the easiest, that they make the higher points. Yeah, and I'll just throw this in there to kind of smooth down the edges for you guys a little, because I could feel some tenseness in the room. We offer at the Princeton Review free digital practice tests for the digital SAT and free practice PSATs for the digital test. And our practice test is the only one that in your score report will tell you which module you got. The College Boards won't do that. So we, as the Princeton Review, because our goal is to help students beat this test, we made sure that our score report is the best that out of everyone, out of our competitors and out of the College Board. They're not telling you which module you got in the second part, but we'll tell you to help you prep so you know where you landed. And when you take one of our tests, we give you a full detailed report of every question, every section, what you got wrong, where you need to improve. So those practice tests are extremely beneficial, and especially if you're worried about this adaptive aspect, it'll help you prep in that way. Any questions before I move forward? Okay. So the strategies, it'll be a mostly multiple choice exam, standard format, process of elimination, letter of the day. And, this morning I was doing this presentation, and someone was like, well, are you guys gonna teach like all the strategies for this test? And I'm like, it's the same strategies. With standardized tests, it's all the same strategy because the questions are still the same. They're not changing. Process of elimination, letter of the day. This sounds so silly, but when you take an SAT prep course, we're not teaching you high school material. The things that you learn in a prep course are, when you have 10 minutes left and you have 20 questions and you know you're not going to get through them, which happens to everybody on a standardized test, you pick letter of the day. You go in with a letter in mind of, when I don't know the answer, I'm putting this one letter. And you will get you'll collect more points putting the same letter for every question you don't know than if you scatter bubble. That's a strategy we teach, okay? Or when you look at answers on math and they go up in increments of 5, 10, 15, 20, start with the middle answer if you're plugging in, and then you could eliminate all of them, right? Does that make, you know what I mean? It's all strategy. It's not content knowledge. And that's what we teach. And you'll be able to use these exact same strategies on the digital test, same as paper and pencil. That's what I just said. So the Desmos calculator, built-in math calculator for math questions used in schools, provides advantages to students. We tested this exam internationally first. So we did this in other countries before it even made it here. And so many people were worried that when we tested it with that computer adaptive aspect, that the Wi-Fi would be an issue and things disconnecting, and and will they be able to submit their tests? Flawless, not an issue. And we purposefully did it in really remote areas where there was no Wi-Fi, dead zones. And we didn't get any negative feedback about students not being able to submit their exams. The only feedback we got from international students is something that they would give us a heads up on, is make sure you know the difference of when to use the Desmos calculator versus the scientific calculator. And again, that's something that will be part of your prep. How do I use that built-in graphing calculator? similar to the things that you were just discussing, those tools ahead of time. It's making sure you're prepared and you go in. You don't want to sit down for the test and then look at this and be like, how do I use this calculator? Right? That was the one thing I could tell you, that before you go into this, know when to use each calculator. And here's an example of how it works, like what it looks like on the application and how you can plug in certain answers. And this is kind of similar to what I was just explaining prior. You start out with like one of the middle ones, and then you could eliminate, and that helps you answer questions quickly. That's just to give you. So you could prepare for the digital SATs to get the score that gets you into your dream college, and you still have time. So we're offering the paper and pencil still until December, which we already discussed. You can take the both versions. And listen, if you want to avoid this completely, the ACT is still paper and pencil, 100%. They haven't announced any changes to the ACT. And what I could tell you too is, I get this question a lot. Colleges are not looking for one or the other. The ACT and the SAT mean the exact same thing with the digital test. So if you choose to go the ACT route, your score means the exact same thing than the SAT. Colleges, literally, they look at your scores and they're like on a sheet and they equal each other. So they'll be like, oh, a 1200 on the SAT equals this on the ACT. Okay. That's how they look at it. They're not like, oh, this person took the ACT. Oh, I'm going to accept that. No, none of that. So there's many ways to prep. Take that practice test. I'm telling you, go to our website. We have so much stuff that's free. You don't have to pay for any of it. We geek out about this stuff, and like, my job is literally making sure that students and families get this information on the digital test, because we want to help you. We want to make sure you have time to prep, and we want you guys to get into the schools you want to get into. So take a practice test, buy a prep book. There's self-prep online. We have courses that we have available, and you can work with a tutor. So working with we have a partnership, so you get 30% off all courses if you wanted to take one of our courses, or 10% off of tutoring, being a Huntington family. So if you wanted to take down those codes, you can. And listen, change, it's going to happen. We have to just kind of go with the flow. I think, students at the end of the day in this generation are so adaptive, and we're used to technology, and I think this will be a really easy transition for students. So, I wouldn't worry too much. I'm going to send out a flyer to you guys tomorrow, and there's going to be links to literally everything I referenced. So you're going to have I'll put in a link to that practice PSAT, digital PSAT. I'm going to put a link to the practice digital SAT for you. I'm going to put links to everything we have going on at the high school that we set up with Miss Alomia, so that we can make sure you guys have everything you need and that you're prepped for these exams, okay? So, and also you can reach out to me. I'll do like a consultation. I set up consultations with parents and students. And if, you're getting to that time where you're like, I want to prep, I need to set up a timeline, I don't know what to do, you can set up a consultation with me, and we can help set up prep for you, and, just kind of find what direction is best for you. So any questions that I have before I wrap up for the evening? I know it was a lot of information, but take it with stride. I think everyone will be fine. So anything you got for me? No one's happy.
So typically, the scores are released, I would say, within 8 weeks or so. We do have I believe we have a scheduled PSAT scores now what workshop coming up in December. So there's so much that we can control in terms of score release, right? So I would say then, you might be able to register for the December SAT, and then, or I'm not sure if you're able to have the scores right around that time. So it all depends actually. So I know that the ACT can touch upon content that is covered in classes such as science. So questions are centered with when it comes to science. I also was told that with the SAT, the math it is more of a algebra and some geometry, but then ACT could be a higher level like trigonometry or algebra 2. But we have our kids taking algebra 2 in ninth grade. So, and by 10th grade, they're already done, with geometry. So there is a difference in terms of that as well with the math.
Just to add to that, so when we say that you prep for one of them, you're 80% prepped for both. Okay, there's not much of a difference. The timing on the ACT also is a huge difference because they give you 60 minutes to do 60 math problems. So it's more like the timing is more crucial. You have less time in each section. And then it's like they'll, oh, there's science on the ACT, but then in the SAT, they'll make the essay on a science topic. Right? So it's like they say it's different, but at the end of the day, what I tell students, especially 10th graders, is take, or 11th graders, wherever you are in your journey. I mean, I talk to seniors that haven't even started. So wherever you're at and you're unsure, take a free practice test of each one and which one you hate less. That's the one you go down the path of. And again, I'll repeat it again. Don't drive yourself nuts flip-flopping and saying, oh, I'll take the ACT, then I'm going to take the SAT. Stay on that path, and everyone's different. Some students might do amazing on the ACT and not care for the SAT, right? So we say take a free practice test. Then from there, that's your starting point. Then take what, you like. And then another little bit that I always like to tell students and parents is, so I had a counselor today say, what if a student only needs like a 1200 to get into the school that they want? Or in their prep courses, are you going to, since they already reached that score, are you going to kind of like keep them on that road, or are you going to keep pushing them to get higher? Our big quote at the Princeton Review is, a good score is the score that's going to get you into your dream college. That's what a good score is, because you can sit there and drive yourself insane fighting for an extra 50 points. But let's say you're trying to get into, I don't want to use a SUNY school as an example, but you're trying to get into Oneonta, right? And their average score is a 1200 and you have a 1250. I would say now it's time to focus on your college application. What's the point driving yourself insane? These students will take these tests over and over again, fighting for more points. But if you have the score that you need, you might be closer than you think to the school you want to get into. So once you reach that, attain that goal, then move on and now focus on your essay, right? Because there's a lot of other things involved in college admissions. Did that help break it down a little? Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? You guys, okay, cool. You've been a nice interactive crowd. I appreciate the feedback and the time. And always reach out if you need anything, okay? So you could set up a consultation. There's my email. Take care.